A Todco overhead door is built to last a long time if it's properly inspected and maintained. This is especially important because of the difficult conditions at the working end of a truck or trailer. On a dry day, a moving truck pulls its own dust storm behind it. The effects of cold or wet conditions are multiplied back here. If you inspect your overhead doors frequently, you can keep them on the road much longer and forego costly repairs. Here's a quick and simple 12-step inspection you can use to get extra life out of your Todco door while ensuring its safe operation. Here's a good indicator that door adjustments may be needed. A properly adjusted door should operate easily, and when stopped halfway or below, should remain stationary. Inspection step 1 is a quick visual review of the door panels. If you spot a crack in a panel, such as this intermediate panel, it needs to be replaced. Step 2 is to inspect the lock. If you see the tip of the lock's lever arm sticking up like this, the lock is probably out of alignment. Check by wiggling the lock lever arm. If it moves like this, it definitely needs adjusting by welding extra metal to the bottom of the pin box. Loose locks allow the door to bounce up and down in transit, knocking years off your door's service life. The lock lever arm should close tight against the pin. It is weighted and balanced, which provides an automatic tightening feature. The lever arm design lets gravity do the job of keeping the door from bouncing down the highway. Examine the lock to see if it's bent or damaged. If it is, replace it. The next step is to inspect all fasteners. Tighten or replace loose fasteners on the pull strap, the lift handle, the lock, and the cable anchor brackets. Step 4 is to check that the safety warning decal is mounted to the left of the lock on the bottom panel. These decals contain important information about the safe operation and proper maintenance of the door. They should never be removed or covered and should be replaced as needed. Step 5 is to examine the cables on both sides of the door. Look for kinked cables and the first signs of fraying like this. Replace the cables immediately when they show signs of wear like this frayed cable. The next step is to check the top panel of the door and its relationship to the trailer or truck body header. If the top panel is not in the same plane as the rest of the door sections, a gap like this is created. When you see this, the top fixture slides need adjustment. The panel fit should be tight against the header, like this, to keep out the elements and better protect your cargo. Step 7 is to examine the pull strap. This is an important part of the door and should be replaced if it shows signs of being frayed, worn, or damaged. It is important to note that an overhead door is a moving object, and that the pull strap should never be used as an aid to getting in or out of a vehicle. Also, never tie anything to the end of the strap. The 8th step is to examine the seals. Start by opening the door part way and examine the bottom seal. If it is not completely intact or it's missing, replace it. The same holds true for the side seals that can crack, rip, and tear. Next, examine the head seal. Grooves are cut into the ends of these for the door cables. If you see any other tears like these, replace the head seal. Together, these seals help to form a barrier against rain, snow, and dirt that can damage your cargo and your overhead door. A key part of your inspection is Step 9, which deals with your door tracks. First, make sure the vertical track and the horizontal track are properly aligned where they meet, and that they are welded or fastened in such a way that there is no obstruction inside the track. Generally, check to make sure there is nothing inside the track obstructing the rollers. Make sure the bolts or other fasteners used to attach the tracks to the frame and sidewalls are flush and not sticking out like this. Obstructions inside the track can cause the door to hang up and can cause rollers to go flat on one side like this. A clicking sound when opening and closing the door is often a telltale sign of an obstruction. Now it's time to check the proper door and track alignment. It is critical that the vertical track is square with the horizontal track. The distance between the horizontal tracks and the vertical tracks should be the same. If it isn't, The horizontal tracks should be shimmed accordingly. Another good way to check for alignment problems is to inspect the gap between the door and the horizontal track. A gap larger than 5/8 of an inch, like this, is too wide. A good indicator that the gap is too wide is a roller stem that is recessed into the hinge like this. Over time, the roller could wedge within the hinge, causing damage to both the hinge and the roller. The roller stem should stick out beyond the hinge like this. Genuine Todco parts always work best with your Todco doors, and in this case, the roller stem has the small T on it that you see here. Another check is to make sure that there are spacer washers on the proper roller stems, and that there are no rollers that are out of the track like this one. Spacer washers play an important part in the proper alignment of your Todco door. At the time of installation, 1 to 4 washers should have been placed on the left and right sides of the first section joint up from the bottom, and the first section joint down from the top of the door. When placed properly, these washers will help hold the door square with the track so it can open and close easily. If the washers are absent or placed on other rollers, the door could bind and become hard to operate. Todco offers specially designed split spacer washers that can easily be added to the roller stem without removal of the roller, end hinge, or door. The gap between the edge of the door and the horizontal track should look more like this. By the way, this is the location, inside top right-hand corner, of the Todco door serial number plate. Please provide this number to Todco when ordering any parts to ensure an exact fit. Step 10 is to check the cable drums. Both the right and left cable drums should be positioned tightly against the bearing. See the gap here and how the cable is feeding out improperly at an angle? This could cause premature cable failure or cause the cable to skip grooves and come off the cable drum like this, which keeps the door from tracking properly, making it harder to open and close. This is the correct positioning of the cable drum, set snugly against the bearing like this. Step 11. The counterbalance spring. If you wind your spring while the door is in the up position, it can cause the spring to kink or snake like this. A kinked spring should be unwound and then rewound properly per Todco rewinding instructions. Check the weld in the counterbalance anchor bracket to the header. Because of the tension exerted from the counterbalance spring, make certain it is properly welded to the header. Also, check the weld on the vertical track headplate brackets. All of the inspection guidelines hold true for a shallow header counterbalance assembly as well. Built to fit into the small space of a shallow header, the assembly operates to the reverse of the regular assembly. For example, the cable drum is still snug against the bearing, but the cable feeds off the opposite side of the drum. Also, there are 2 extra holes in the winding plug, here, for winding bars, and the spring winds in the opposite direction. Check the counterbalance spring for rust. Operating a rusty spring puts undue pressure on the spring and makes the door harder to open and close. A few seconds with Todco lube, and the spring is lubricated. In fact, the following parts should be lubricated regularly, so bringing a can of Todco lube with you on your inspection is a smart idea. Spray the counterbalance shaft bearings. Make sure both bearings receive a liberal application of the lube. Lubricate the rollers. Be generous with the lube in the ball bearings, as well as the shaft and the outer tires of the rollers. And allow the excess lubricant to flow into the tracks. Lubricate all center and end hinges, as well as the hinge pin. When spraying the bottom roller holders, spray the lubricant through the holes provided. It is also recommended that the lock be lubricated. How often you lubricate depends on your own cleaning routine, but the few minutes spent lubricating will always be less than the time it will take to replace the part. The final step, step 12, is to inspect hinges. Hinges that are badly rusted or broken should be replaced. Any loose leaves should be refastened. Properly functioning hinges are important to the proper operation of the door. Now you have seen the important procedures necessary for the inspection of your Todco door. Conduct this 12-step inspection frequently, And the cost per mile of operation of your Todco doors should go down dramatically.